We feel like we're losing control. Writing code that has a level of independence in solving problems.
A longtime pioneer in AI, Babak Hodjat, is the primary inventor behind the technology that powers Apple's Siri.
Well, I don't know if I would describe Siri as a search company, but they're in the AI area.
So you bought them for their engineers and their patents and their knowledge about AI?
Yeah, we bought them.
AI traders, essentially robots that can buy, sell, and short stocks.
Mr. Babak Hodjat, the Chief AI Officer for Cognizant. Mr. Hodjat.
I have with me Babak Hodjat, who is CTO of AI with Cognizant Technologies. Great to have you with us here.
I think it is possible, but we're nowhere close to that. A lot of that ARR, I think, is kind of inflated.
Next trend, self-improving agents. SIA.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Caroline Hoagland. I'm CEO at Human Agency. Ardalan and Farzam invited me to come speak today and help moderate this conversation. And I just want to start with saying Secondpod, these guys have been going at this for a couple years, and I've always been a fan of their work, but it's been in Farsi for a while, and they've had such an amazing group of different founders on the show. And now the last few episodes have been in English, which make it more accessible for someone like myself to participate in. And so this live event today is going to be recorded. This is going to be published as a formal podcast. So we really appreciate everyone silencing your cell phones and kind of respecting the fact that you are a live audience, but we also are going to have a published conversation. So with that, Ardalan will introduce and get things moving.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline, and thank you, everybody, for coming here. Is a little bit of story behind today. I think around 2 years ago, a friend of the pod reached out to me and said, I want Babak Hodjat on your podcast. I went after him. And I saw this story is bigger than a guest, and he has a brother. And basically, on the past 25 years, they never, show up together. And, but, we have them today. And basically, this is what we're trying to do at Second Group and Secondpod. We actually care about the community, and we listen, and we try to empower our community as well. And thank you, Caroline, for doing this with us today. And I think we have an interesting introduction from two brothers. So you're gonna. Before that, Farzam is my partner, and from day one we start. Today we start podcast with each other.
Amazing. So without further ado, let's get started. All right. I'm going to start with Babak, and we're going to start with a number, and we'll play a little trivia here to see if this number means anything to you. 6594684. Okay, here's a hint. This number was important on June 15th, 1998. You'll get, Siamak will get bonus points of his, we have someone in the audience who might know the number. That's very close. This number, very close. This number was the year and date of it was the number of your patent, and it was the date that it was approved. The first patent. Adaptive, here's a mouthful. We'll say this, see if you can say this 10 times in a row. Adaptive interaction using an adaptive agent-oriented software architecture. That very patent, 28 years ago, that very patent is used today to build out and has built out an entire AI assistant category. It traces back to the 90s. And your path backwards from there, PhD in Japan, you've studied machine intelligence, you founded Dejima. Adam, you were close. The company that was built on that same patent. Sybase then buys it. Mark Benioff calls your technology the foundation for the next killer app. And we might know who that guy is, or his tower. Sentient then comes into the picture. this is a huge endeavor in your life. You spend many years on it. It's later acquired by Cognizant, which you're now serving as the chief technology officer of AI for that company. Tens of thousands of employees. And to date, you have not sat down with your brother to talk about your journey together, which we'll now talk to your better half, Siamak. And maybe that's up for debate. We'll figure that out today in the pod. Siamak, you study computer science at Sharif University. You have your master's from Amir Kabir. But then you became pretty obsessed with the consumer. And you kind of doubled down doing this in one category. You took the AI assistant category, and you, unlike so many people in this room and in the Valley, you were able to take one core piece of technology, and then you had multiple exits and acquisitions off of that one piece of technology. And we're going to get into that today because I think everyone here has something to learn from you. How do you take something that you're good at and figure out how to reconstitute and recycle it to make your career as successful as it's been?
Well, it wasn't too hard. I followed Babak first, and then I followed Adam.
Amazing. All right. In the 90s, Babak, your PhD, this whole concept of agentic architecture and multi-agent systems. If you now, 2026, driving down the 101, billboard after billboard, your agent needs an agent. Your multi-agent system needs an agent system that has an Okta security, just everywhere. There's a flood of these new conversations around agentic systems. And at the kind of moment that you were doing your research, what then did a multi-agent system mean to you, and how has that definition changed and evolved with this new kind of tidal wave of LLMs that have flooded the market?
Do we have a few hours?
I'll blink at you when it's time to move on.
All right. Well, but at the time, I was studying, for my master's degree, I was looking at distributed AI systems, and realized, like, in the lab on toy problems, when you break the problem down and you have little idiot savants working on them, the collective emergent behavior is very powerful and can solve problems that you couldn't solve with, the individuals. So I thought, I made it kind of my quest to, manifest that power in larger applications. And I looked around for who was working on this kind of stuff. I was in Iran at the time. I found this professor in Kyushu University in Japan, and he was building a computer from ground up that was distributed from the hardware all the way up to the operating system. And what he was missing was the application layer. And so I was in correspondence with him. Anyway, long story short, I ended up working with him. And the big glorified application that I had in mind was, soccer World Cup, like build agents that would play soccer. That was the biggest thing that I had in mind. Then through some misunderstandings, a friend of mine challenged me to apply that to natural language processing and conversational systems. I searched the web. The beginnings of the web was happening back then. And I couldn't find that many people working on it. Adam was actually sitting in the second row there. He had done some really fascinating work. And there was someone at Stanford that was doing more coarse-grained agentic systems. But at the time, agents were defined as being sort of your representative, let's say, in the web. And they weren't as fine-grained as I would have liked them to be. The vision of what an agent would do was there, but could it actually do it? No. And I think that we never actually quite got there until LLMs were invented. So fast forward, a lot happened in between. But to your question, is only when people realize that LLMs as a model that you just inference, you give it some input, it gives you output, has limited applicability. It's only when you actuate its intent, you actually ground it in something to do, that it becomes interesting and when you limit its scope of responsibility. And so that's the modern day definition of agent. Today, agents have LLMs behind them, basically. That's not the original definition. But in some roundabout way, we've come back to agents and agent-based systems. I think we're still in the early days of massive multi-agent systems, even LLM-based ones. I think that's still, we're working on it, but it's something that still needs more work. But that's the distinction.
And do you feel that the agentic systems that you were building 20 some odd years ago, the approach that you took and the limits of what that technology could do back then would have been supercharged if you had LLM
Oh,
technology?
absolutely. I have this graph that I put together. I think it's in that patent that you just mentioned.
He's remembering.
Yeah. Well, I didn't memorize the number. But there's a graph where, so initially when we started, the early days, it was about controlling your TV set, because that was really hard, like programming your VCR. That's a video cassette recorder. A video is a cassette that I have to.
I know. I actually had some VHS tapes.
There we go. So that's where we started. But the idea there was that all these agents are kind of working together to help you control your home entertainment system. Very quickly, we came to the conclusion that, okay, if you have some agents representing the TV and then some agents representing the VCR and maybe the satellite system, these might be from different vendors. So you might have agents that are representing different systems, all in the service of the human user. And then I remember we put this chart in where when you asked for some programming from the agentic system, it would go over the line to a hosted agentic system on the broadcaster side that would then source the content that you would want to see. This is back in 97, 98 when we started thinking about that. That sort of system, I think it's much closer to reality today, but we still don't have it. It's not quite there yet.
Babak, take us back. Let's talk about Dejima. What was your story behind Dejima, and what was your vision at that time, and how did the company evolve through time?
I was just tagging along, quite frankly. I mean, I had a technology vision as a technologist. When problems are posed to you as an engineer, you look at them and you go, yes, I can do it, or I can't. And that was my only role at the time. I would look at it and go, I think I can do this. But the impetus behind Dejima was a friend of mine who really wanted to start a company. His name is Chris Savoy. And we were good friends in college. He kind of misunderstood what I meant by agent. But out of that misunderstanding came the challenge of whether you can actually use agent systems in natural language conversational systems. And one thing led to another. I was very, very skeptical that we could even like start a company and people would pay good money for us to just have fun and build agentic systems. But he was resolute. And my first thing, he said, let's go. I mean, the funny story here is he said, I have tickets. Let's go to the Bay Area and just try this thing out. Let's check this thing out. Who would you want to meet? And I did my research, and Adam was the first person that came up. Like, yeah, I know, let me go run this by Adam, because anyone else I wouldn't have trusted. But someone who had worked in this area, if he had said, yeah, there's something here, there's some substance. And so I met Adam. And out of that meeting, I thought, okay, so my gut sense of this is possible is real. But we then went to a advisory company, Hiroshi Menjo. He was a big author in Japan and not as well known in the Bay Area. My friend was pitching the business case to him, and they were going back and forth. And all the while I was like, yes, but how are we going to even, where's the money going to come from? So I finally asked that question of Hiroshi, and he said, look, you put this business plan together and you put a prototype together. I'll pick up the phone. We'll get 50K into your startup, in no time. And just in the tradition of the TV series Silicon Valley, the next thing I did when we walked out was I asked my friend, what's a business plan?
You didn't have ChatGPT to make it for you back then.
So what happened to Dejima? Yeah.
So we started the company in I think it was officially May of 98 was when it started. Back then, actually, during that 10 days that we were in the Bay Area, we went to Fry's Electronics, which, oh my God, do I miss Fry's Electronics? It's like heaven. You would walk through there. So we went there. We bought a package for connecting your TV to your computer. We bought a package for Java. I decided to write the code in Java because Java had just come out and it was cool. I think my friend bought a package that helped him put a business plan together. So that's what we took back to Japan and built the prototype. And yeah, we got some seed money and flew out here and started the company.
Awesome. Siamak, you joined Dejima in 1999. And entering a company building around your brother's vision and research. So what did you bring to the table that Babak didn't have? And how did your relationship change with your brother? Now your brother becomes your co-founder and colleague. What happened?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I joined Dejima because Babak and his VP of marketing took me Barry. Yeah. They
CIA.
the CIA. They came to Japan. They took me to a McDonald's and offered me pancakes. And they said, if you leave your PhD, come to US, you can get this every day. So I was,
Sold.
yeah, I mean, and then, yeah, so I think Babak has really good ideas. And, obviously, our relationship, I mean, I enjoyed working with him. Like, I didn't enjoy that much going up with him, and I was yeah, but I don't know, we always had fights and stuff. But at work, I thought it's really good because he always came up with these dreams. He told me about the dreams. This is what's gonna happen. Salesforce.com is gonna buy us, and then RIM is gonna buy us, and they're fighting. We don't know who's gonna buy us, and it was like, oh man, we're doing so well. But yeah, I mean, the dreams were there, and I shared every dream. I was trying hard to make it more practical, and I thought that was my role. Really.
So you're saying Babak was not practical, or
No, he's a dreamer.
oh,
Which is good. I mean, you need that because you won't be brave enough to do new things unless you have that.
So let's shift the gear a little bit. We call ourselves as a historian of technology. So let's see chain of the events. In 2003, Dejima joined the Kalo project. It's basically the DARPA money. And the chief architect of the Kalo project sitting here, Adam. And he, between Doug, Tom, and the Siamak, starting a little startup, spin out from the DARPA and Kalo, which becomes Siri. But you didn't join them. Like, why? Your technology, your people, basically your patent.
Your big ideas.
Yeah, your ideas. Why you didn't join them, Siri?
Well, I mean, you're assuming they wanted me. I talked to Adam actually when he had the idea to start the company, and I was tired. I had worked on conversational systems, natural language for 10 years, and I was just tired of hacking away at that. I was thankful that Adam and the team were gonna carry the torch. And I had there were other things that I had in mind. I was thinking about, but from afar, I was a big fan, big supporter. Helped as much as I could, and I still am. I mean, those guys are awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so now me feel kind of a little bit uncomfortable. So you two guys, I think, is the kind of the only person who can answer this question. So Apple is still using Siri. It's not really quite functional. And they recently did some report. They bottled up with some LLM to do it like a hybrid model. It still doesn't work. Apple is still trying with OpenAI. And then now you're using Gemini and paying them the Google. So basically two questions. Is the Apple problem is cultural? Is a kind of innovation dilemma classic case? Or is it technical? Is something related to the architecture? And the other part is that why they still keep that part on the OS? Like now is the time for the Apple that everyone trying to do it. And basically the days of the Apple start from now.
Uncomfortable questions are for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing better now. Like I've been trying, it's much better than last year. So they might be able to crack it. I don't know. I think they probably made that mistake of trying to build their own LLMs. I mean, y- I think they're more comfortable at the application layer and they should have stayed there. Although they never, I don't know how to say this, like they were never like a good service company. They're much better, client side devices. And many years of not really making any good progress on their assistance. You end up with these people who just maybe are researching or don't have that idea or vision of where to go. It's hard to just shift things around and suddenly understand, oh, here's what we have to do. It takes real leadership, which
The
maybe,
new leader.
but see how he does. I think maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Siamak, I think, can you tell what's the difference between the Siri app that Wozniak liked it and probably talked to Steve and then reach out to you and probably Adam, and what the Siri we have today? There's any foundational differentiation between these two?
I don't know how they've changed it, or like I haven't been there for 10 years.
You were there.
But when we were there, I think so something like we always say Siri app was a lot more accurate that as an app rather than when it was integrated part of the OS. The reason was, I mean, with Siri, like the team thought around the whole user experience um, and tried to make it the best possible for the user. We had something called Semantic autocomplete. So you started typing and it would just guide the user towards things that it knows. When it got into Apple, we had only voice activation. There was no way to guide the users. They didn't know what to say. So suddenly everybody expected everything, but it was only good at things it knew. And I think that was one of the big differences. Yeah.
We had you on the pod, and it's on Persian, but you can check it out. It was interesting. And this is 2 years ago, you made a kind of statement that who gonna win the category of the AI assistant is the person who owned the OS. Still, you believe on that?
The OS, yeah. I mean, well, I don't remember exactly my logic then, but I still believe if you own the device, like this is where you go to talk to. Like to me, everything else is commoditizing. Like LLM, now the Chinese models comes out, like Anthropic comes with one, is better than OpenAI, then Google comes out. It's I don't know how much business is in there. Like as a user, I keep switching between them, and I really don't care which one as long as it does the job for me. And I guess if there's open source ones, I'll just use that. I don't want to pay ad money to OpenAI or anyone else or Google just to, and I don't want to sell all my information to them to get to all the to get that help I need from the AI assistant. And Apple, Apple or companies like that who are selling the device and making their money out of the device, their incentive is just to bring the best user experience. So whoever can crack that would, I think, be the winner. I mean, I like the angle of privacy. Your data would stay on the phone, and as much as possible, like LLMs can run on the phone with your data. Your data won't even leave the phone. Those are like selling points to me as a user. So I think it's.
And do you think that in a world where hardware and an application layer like the OS of an Apple device becomes your moat, that LLMs and these frontier model labs, the work and their output is becoming commoditized? I mean, if you think about Kimmy that just launched, it's like, is there a world where even in 6 months from now, our conversation is, I cannot believe the IPO of Anthropic was that? Or is it, well, actually, it was nice that they kept it close to the vest and people need to continue to pay for that?
I know. I definitely think it's gonna be open source, and I don't know. Like, I don't know about 6 months from now, but soon enough, I think it probably can all run on your phone. You don't even need any of the big guys running things on the cloud.
And Babak, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think I was blown away just a couple months ago when I was able to run a multi-agent system on my laptop against a Qwen 4 billion parameter model, and it did reasonably well. And it's come a long way. The same, like maybe 8 billion parameter model from 2 years ago would be really, really bad. But this, fine-tuned for, tool use and some reasoning at that, like miniature size, it's working well enough. And that's the key word, is working well enough. Like, the frontier model companies are looking to build, AGI and super intelligence. That's their quest. Everything else is kind of incidental to that. The rest of us are living in a world where we want AI to be helpful for us and useful for us. And so for us, good enough is sufficient, because there's a cost of operation that kicks in, and there's a customization that we have to make. And I think open is the way to go. I'm a big proponent of open source. It's unfortunate, or maybe fortunate for China, that they have picked up that mantle. But LLMs are being commoditized. I mean, the mark of that is these LLM routers that are so popular now in the past, 3-4 months. You just can't live without them. And there's a lot of AI now. It's interesting. These are interesting AI problems as to routing, so you get the functionality that you require while the cost is managed and so forth. But that assumes that the LLM backend is like interchangeable. So to your point about the IPOs, I don't know really. They may be major flops for what I see.
And do you believe that this kind of new frontier of edge models and, let's try to see if we can create tiny models that work well enough and are fine-tuned to their specific use case? Like, I don't need my car GPS to know who the Pope is. So do you think that world is essentially like the new frontier of where we should be if there's investors in the room or people who are trying to figure out where they should focus their time and their startup? Is that the category?
We have to be careful about this. What makes an LLM is, in my opinion, its reasoning capacity. A lot of that reasoning capacity comes as a side effect of training on lots and lots of data. Now, once you actually have that LLM, most of the parameters in that LLM have gone to memorizing basically whatever text content that's out there, right? You don't need it anymore when you actually go out and make use of it. In fact, it's dangerous. Like, you don't want to defer to its now stale world knowledge when it comes to the knowledge that it has. What you want is its capacity to reason, its capacity to make calls to tools and so forth. So the process of training might still require very large models. And I think we shouldn't go the other extreme of, oh yeah, let's just create these tiny little, very, very special models, because that process might actually skip the whole emergent, reasoning capacity of the models. But I still do think that LLMs are much, much too large for what they do today. You don't need, 3 trillion parameters for what we expect to do. So if that's what you mean by an edge LLM, yeah, I think that's the path, is to get smaller, more capable models.
And a lot of the work that you did when you founded Sentient, and for our listeners that don't know, Sentient in its era, 2007 to 2014, you raised over $140 million, or maybe over $170 million. This was the Anthropic OpenAI of that decade. huge company, but it stayed in stealth mode for a long time. And you talked a lot about evolutionary AI, and you deployed these multi-agent systems to um, trade, and kind of that compound of, if you can marginally win on enough trades over and over again, you've got a pretty successful company. And it lived through a couple different phases and eras before it was acquired. But I want to understand the technology behind Sentient and your journey there. What can we learn as listeners and as an audience around how you scaled it, and what your kind of big bet was, and what you would have done differently if you were to do it all over again?
The big bet was, let's take the customer client out of the picture and go direct to the source, which is the market, and have agents trade in the stock market directly. And what's really nice about the stock market is there's a lot of historical data that you can actually use as your sort of training ground. And within certain limitations, you can actually run what if scenarios. So what if I had bought a lot of Microsoft in 1989? Right? And I would have made a lot of money because the stock went up or whatever, right? So you can actually run these what if scenarios. There's a wealth of training data at different trading frequencies that you can use. So our idea was, we train agentic systems. Now, those are agents of old. They were comprised of a set of rules that looked at various different patterns in the stock that was being traded, or in other stock, or in the market. And based on that, they decided whether to buy or short or hold, and various different actions. So they were agents, but they didn't have large language models behind them. And the way we trained them was through evolutionary computation, a form of evolutionary computation that's better known as genetic programming, which is, you let evolution basically evolve the rule sets. The rule sets are rule sets. They're human readable and repeatable, but they are evolved rather than hand authored. So that was our foray into trading in the stock market. What would I do differently if I were to do this today? We did make some money. It wasn't sufficient to justify all the investment that went into it, and we did pivot. The reason for the pivot wasn't the fact that we gave up on making money in the stock market. It was much more philosophical. We just figured this technology is probably more useful elsewhere than just to, trade in the stock market and just make money in a very neutral way. So that was the main reason why we pivoted. But also, it would have been much more work to get us the returns that we expected. If I were to use that same model today, so the system was looking at a lot of what we called indicators to decide what to do. And today you have much better, richer indicators if you use large language models that can basically understand language, and markets, for the most part, is human sentiment, and human news and so forth is all in natural language. So that might have been one way to enrich those agents.
And something that, again, for our listeners that don't know, Babak, outside of founding companies and being an incredible scientist and researcher, you are an amazing writer. And you were writing, I think, last week around the agentic ecology of, hey, we get a bunch of agents in a room, and maybe we can reference Moltbook, of you get these agents together and they start adapting and learning. And one small, tiny bias at the beginning can really have a pretty grand impact at the end, at your output. Is the work that you did that kind of founded Sentient, that evolutionary AI, evolutionary computation, is that similar to the work that you're doing today in terms of how to control? You're not going to be able to control agents, but to create a system where you can at least remove some of the error?
Let me answer it this way. So I've always thought that having an ecosystem of agents that are trying to survive a environment might yield like emergent behavior that solve a problem that's overlaid onto that environment. So that problem could be trading in the stock market, for example. It could be, solving an enterprise problem. So from that perspective, I think there is a little bit of a link between the two. But otherwise, I mean, the recent article was, truly about these unintended consequences when you have multiple autonomous agents that are operating and interacting. And one things that we found out is that when an agent modifies its environment and then that environment informs its behavior, that give and take ends up changing the intended behavior often, and might might result in things that we simply didn't expect. We have this environment called TerraLingua. It's open right now for people to use. If you go to cognizantailab.com, you can get to that environment and you can put your agents in there. One of the fascinating observations we had there was one of the agents put an artifact, basically it wrote something and left it behind in the environment that said, danger, this area is dangerous. I don't know why it set that down there. Maybe it had some issue, something happened, it set it down there. Over generations of agents running into that artifact, that got interpreted and misinterpreted as food is dangerous.
Wow.
And after a while, we had this collective starvation of every single agent in that environment because they just refused to eat food. I'll leave it up to you guys to think about analogies to human culture and human behavior, but that was certainly not the outcome that we expected.
And is that also kind of related to the schizo mode trade stories of Sentient days? Do you want to explain that?
Well, you always want when you're most AI is about searching and exploiting a search space. And exploiting a search space, you could do it by hill climbing. So pretty much every deep learning neural network, large language model is trained through some form of backpropagation hill climbing. But it's hill climbing. So if you get to the peak of the hill, then you're there. And if there's a mountain, you're never going to get there. So you always want to have a little bit of schizo. You want to have a little bit of randomness. You want the agents, for example, the AI system that's doing the search to occasionally venture off and do something that might not be in the short term in its interest. So that is the schizo thing that we added. I don't know where you dug that out, but that it's still something that is used today. Just very briefly, every large language model is fine-tuned. And the fine-tuning uses a hill climbing backpropagation approach called reinforcement learning. Everyone, like when you use ChatGPT, that's fine-tuned for alignment, for behaving like a chatbot. So there's another way of fine-tuning that is much more powerful and exploits these searches the search space of possible LLMs much better, and it's evolutionary strategies. So evolution is still very relevant in today's LLM-based world.
I know Faz don't have a question, but just quick, because Sentient story, I think, is part of the AI history. And there is a rumor in Silicon Valley in 2014, one of the most important startup of the AI, which acquired by Google on that time for $500 million, you got a call. We need someone to do the due diligence for the round B. You did the due diligence for DeepMind. Can you tell us the story?
At the time we had a major investor, Horizon Ventures, that was Li Ka-shing and Selena Chow out of Hong Kong. And occasionally they put me on these quests. I did the due diligence on D-Wave, which is a quantum computing thing too. And I just took that on because I was interested in learning more about quantum computing. And they said, yeah, there's this AI company. They're using neural networks, deep learning, and they're fascinating. And we want you to do the due diligence. And I went in being very, very skeptical. I was not a neural network guy. I didn't like neural networks at the time. And I went in with deep Skepticism had several meetings, and Mustafa.
Lutulanga.
I went out there a couple of times, yeah, and I was just blown away by what those guys were doing and where they were, and I gave the two thumbs up for the Series B, and they got acquired like within 6-9 months of that.
So, evolutionary computation is the core idea behind Sentient. And fast forward in 2017, you introduced evolutionary deep neural network. And then in 2025, DeepMind introduced AlphaEvolve, bringing evolution into the realm of LLMs and agents. So to me, all these are different versions and generations of same core fundamental idea. So my question is, can you connect the dots for us? Why do you think evolution is important? Do you still have the same conviction that you have like 20 years ago about evolution in terms of agents and stuff?
Yeah, and I'll let Sia contradict me on this one, but it's a natural progression, right? Like I started off on my quest to figure out how computers work, then how brains work. And then inevitably you ask the question, like, how did the amazingly complex and powerful system come to being? And then, the answer scientifically is, it's through evolution. And then you go, wow, evolution. It's like a superhero story where every superhero is like more powerful than the next one, and you want to go figure that one out. So that's how I got onto evolution. But evolution is a very, very powerful search algorithm, and it's substrate agnostic. You can evolve anything. So all you have to do is have a relative fitness measure. How good being one is with respect to being two, not even with respect to the ideal, but with respect to one another. And if you have that, and there's some sort of the search space lends itself to traversing it, then you can apply evolutionary computation. So give me any problem. Like now we're talking about LLMs and making them better, and I'll throw the evolutionary computation at it, and it'll make it even better. So it's an easy innovation to use.
Siamak, it seems like you're not on the same page here.
I agree. I think evolutionary systems could do it. You just have to be very patient, millions of years for brain to come. And if I have a problem, would I say, okay, I'll let my sons, 100 generation from now, kind of figure it out by intuition somehow?
Legacy of Hodjat.
Yeah. So you have to be very patient with it. So maybe it would come up with a huge breakthrough that would work better than brain. But right now, then you have, if you can simulate the brain, you probably want to use that.
So, talking about using the brain in different structures, I want to talk about your journey, your perspective, Siamak. After Siri and Steve Jobs and Apple acquiring your technology, you then went on to found Viv.
For both Siri and Viv, I was not a founder. I was one of the early engineers.
Or you were.
You know what happened?
You built it.
Both
Very
times,
humble.
Adam who's right here, asked me to come have a breakfast with him.
More this time.
And I got pancakes. It's the pancakes. For the first time, for the first one, Siri, I actually had a contract signed with another company that was kind of excited to join.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't give me pancakes before. So I said, I didn't even have done anything. Like Adam just said, come have breakfast. And then he said, there's an opportunity here if you want to join. And I just said, okay, I'll dropping that contract. I'm coming into like the interview process, everything to join you guys. So the idea was really great. And
so with those kind of iterations over the course of maybe like 10, 15 years, you as a founding engineer or as a builder of these AI assistants, you're deep in it. You had multiple exits kind of off of one category to Apple and then to Samsung. Like, why did the world need another assistant? And how can people, our listeners who are maybe thinking about their own skill set, their technology, their moat, how do they think about reconstituting technology to sell it to more than one person? And what tips do you have for us to think about that in the context of your own journey?
So for assistants, I think nobody even knew they needed it so much. I think when Siri came out, um,
it was a big deal.
It was a
Siri,
big deal.
I mean, I remember talking to my
But even the app was incredible. Like, I think it was one of the best-selling apps in productivity. It was number one, and so I think like it was maybe still a little bit early for its time, but the promise. You saw the promise, and there's a lot of things you could do with it that you could do. It would be much harder to do without the assistant. And especially the app, because we were trying to do things like the idea of being a do engine, like you want to go to a restaurant, get reservation, the table, everything all the way to the end. And I think it took someone like Steve Jobs to see that vision, and maybe back then it was an important investment, but now you look back and you see like, is there anything more important than an assistant right now on the phone? It's like the whole future of Apple might be hanging over how well they execute on that. I forgot the question. Was it about this?
No, that was good. That was.
Can you tell about the Samsung part? Like what happened? You repeated, like basically you white label your broader technology, like the 13 years. Did you? And we cashed it out. That's the whole story.
So for Aviv Labs, so we were at Siri. Steve Jobs stayed around until Siri was launched, and the day after he passed away. And I think we lost someone that had the vision of what they wanted to do. Adam, Doug, the founders had their own vision, but they were not connected to the people who would make the decisions. Like that was like a big frustration for them, because so somehow the way they organized the company, their voice was not heard. So they decided that they would just leave and start a new company with the idea of, as Siri was an app, make like a platform where everyone can make something like a Siri. Everyone can add capabilities. I remember Doug called it like the brain. Everybody could add capabilities to to the brain. This is before Amazon came with skills and stuff. We were thinking about it in the context of Apple too, but it wasn't happening really. So they did that. They started the company. I started around. I had like a project that I was excited about at Apple, and I would have stayed if it would go through. It was basically adding. I mentioned the Semantic autocomplete that Siri app had, and Siri the OS didn't have. So we started that as an initiative to add that to Siri.
We were started at Apple.
No, so this was why I stayed around. Viv was like, okay, the idea of opening it up to everyone, like a platform, going from Siri as one app to the platform. I stayed back because I wanted to do. So I was just telling my own story, sorry. But with Viv, the idea was to become an app, a marketplace. Anyone can. So that's why we joined Viv. I think it was successful in many ways. Like the development tool that we built there was amazing. We had people bringing their own ideas and extending our global brain to do more. I mean, obviously, like Bixby, which is on all I don't know, I think it's still on all Samsung devices, it's built on top of our platform. So there were a lot of good things that came out of it, a lot of learnings going from, a consumer app to a platform that it changes a lot of things. Like the scale of things you have to do is very different. So that was the journey.
You answered the question. So you asked me specifically, don't talk about your current role at Airbnb.
No, I said like you can ask. I might not
No,
ask.
I'm gonna ask. I just want to say. But so basically 2 times you did that acquisition, and then Adam came to you and let's do this one, but basically let's do is action, like a system actually can do something or planning, and that's the core of
So
the game.
the do engine was the idea like Adam had for Siri, and we wanted to do it for Beef Labs too. I think it's an idea that even now it's not really fulfilled. Like OpenAI started something with ChatGPT app, and you can add your own app, and then they kind of abandoned it. It's not an easy thing to pull off. For Game Planner, that was our company, Game Planner. So I was done with Samsung, even maybe before Adam, but still, I was checked out much sooner than Adam. I thought like that company, Samsung, culturally, I think it was not run the way I wanted it to be. Like, I didn't think we are making the progress we wanted to make. And so I kept we went on these one-on-one, and I kept bringing up ideas about startups. And, early on, most of them you would dismiss. I know, we've done this, or this is too hard, somebody else is doing this. But I kept doing it and doing it. And I found a few places, a few weaknesses around assistance sometimes other things. But, he eventually left. I stayed at Samsung, but it was during COVID, and we still stayed in touch, and we kept running ideas. The first idea was like a project planning system, but then it kind of turned into a decision-making system. So Game Planner was to help people make decisions. And, the idea was like there's many tools to do different things. You go to Google to search for documents, or you have the spreadsheets to work on numbers. There's no one place you go to make decisions, and decisions is one of the most important things we do. If there's no way to dedicate it to making good decisions, go one place to make collaboratively good decisions with other stakeholders.
So my question, Siamak, is the life after your experience at Airbnb. So think about the Airbnb. Airbnb is type of the startup that build on network effect. They have a huge distribution, the brand, and now they are dealing with the current situation that the technology is going to disrupt a lot, and you are facing it or experience it every day. So if a large consumer brand type of the Airbnbs, they're going to disrupt themselves. So what is the right way to do it? And or how do you experience it? Like, what do you think they can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brian Chesky has the right idea. Like, he understands their urgency of renovating Airbnb, and I'm fully supporting. But the problem is that it's not an easy problem, and you don't know it until you start working, trying to see how you can AI, make an AI first application. Is that there's a lot of other things that should work. Like, it's also like the business, and where the business is, where your users are, where you're making your money. So I think I can't say much more about this. It's like the urgency is there. There is some work that is incrementally getting into the app, which is using AI, and the big ideas are there. But you need to make it like something that it also matches completely with the business, and everybody's behind it, and move forward, I guess.
Do you almost think for a founder or different consumer categories, even labor categories, it's easier to start a company from the ground up today than it is to bring an existing company into the future? Like if you apply AI to an existing organization, do you hit more headwinds and the tailwinds are actually just start from zero?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's much harder in a big company, especially now with all the productivity tools. I think honestly, most big companies are overstaffed. You don't need this many people working on this. I mean, every division at all these big companies can do everything other divisions can do, sort of.
So you're like,
And it
why aren't they
becomes a
just
problem. Now,
generalists?
most of your time is making sure you can coordinate every effort, like make sure they're not overstepping each other, each organization. I mean, I say that I say this at Airbnb, like everything is becoming everything. Every team, there's like one developer, two for this thing, now is going to do everything that the other team is doing, and there needs to be that. I think it needs a really top-down architecture, kind of an architect that can make sure everything is done right, and it's really a hard problem. I think big companies are better off. Sadly, I think the way maybe sadly or maybe not, I think where we're going with all these productivity tools is that big companies should shrink, or smaller companies or startups would come and take their place easily, because it's much faster to build something that took years and years to build by just two or three people or just one person. And it would be sad, like people might lose their job at big companies because of the trend of, if what I thinking becomes true, it's sad. But on the other hand, I'm hoping that the future would be a lot more startups working on more challenging, not the same thing. Because even now I see all the startups kind of trying the same things again. Like whatever is the hot topic, like make LM smaller, fit it on the phone or whatever. There's so many hard humanity problems that can be solved. And hopefully it makes it easier to do that now.
So let's talk about enterprise AI. We have seen explosive growth in the field of enterprise AI in the last 6 months or 7 months. Anthropic starting 2026 with like around 10 billion ARR. Now, in May, they are at 50 billion ARR. Today, I think they are at 70 billion ARR. Unimaginable growth in like 6, 7 months. So, Babak, what's your opinion? What do you think driving this humongous growth? And do you think it is sustainable? It's going to continue like this?
Yeah, I think to what Sia said, like, productivity is busting out of just being, something that helps you write code. These LLM-based agentic systems can be trusted to work on longer and longer chains of reasoning, and get stuff done to the point where, this is it would have been unheard of like even a year ago, but today it's just table stakes that your agent has full command line access. And therefore, what does that mean? That means that you're trusting it to be able to do anything. That's like a Turing complete machine you're giving to an agent. You're saying, do whatever you want, which comes with its own risks, obviously. But there's a reason why we're here, because these LLMs are capable enough to be able to do that. And while, tech companies are really good at, we're all a bunch of techies and we write code and we know that world very well. So that's the first world that's being disrupted. And a lot of agentic systems are being used now there, and it's being heavily disrupted. It's just amazing what's happening there. But people find that same agent. It used to be you had a codex and you had ChatGPT. Now they're the same thing. There's a reason for that. It's because it's so generally useful and it can just do everything for you beyond just writing code. Same thing for Anthropic. So that is disruptive but still at a personal level. It's still personal productivity. We're still not at a point where it's disrupting workflows and disrupting processes as a whole. You don't have a full supply chain unit in your major enterprise that's completely agentic. We're not there. Can we do it? I believe we can. I believe there's an engineered way of doing it, and there's some rethinking that can go into it, but we're not there. So if you think we're like these companies are growing and that's a sign of disruption, first of all, let me say that the reality of enterprises is different. It is different. The expectation has driven the business side of enterprises to pour a lot of investment and money in bringing these tools in. So, well, it's one of those cases where the need hasn't been identified yet, but the business side is really, really pushing for it. And they're pushing on both sides. They're like, I want you to be using things like Anthropic and ChatGPT and Gemini and so forth more and more, because as I give you that, what I expect in return is productivity, which means less people, more productivity. I want you to turn these things around more quicker, maybe get more margin on if you're B2B on your deals and so forth. That's all driven by business. To Siamak's point, the actual mechanics of how something like this is going to work has not been worked out yet. The promise is there. Don't get me wrong. I do think it is possible to meet much of that expectation through hard work and engineering. I think it is possible, but we're nowhere close to that. And so a lot of that ARR, I think, is kind of inflated. It's kind of like expectation driving spend on AI that is really not yet yielding the productivity. A lot of the productivity that we see people like laying folks off and so forth is maybe what was already like there. It was like they could afford to lay those people off, but it's not because AI came in and made things so much more productive that you need a team of one person instead of a team of 20. That we're simply not there yet.
Siamak, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I do agree that companies are paying too much for productivity tools right now without actually knowing what they want to do with it. I think it's a good idea as far as you want to educate your employees to know how to use these things, but the output might not really be anything that would drive the business forward. And it's just like this is the period where it takes you got these new tools and now you're trying to figure out how to use them. I would think soon it's gonna get better, but it's not gonna be instant. It's gonna take some time.
So if you are gonna make a bet on who's gonna win the enterprise, OpenAI, Anthropic, open source or Chinese, in a short-term future?
Well, Anthropic definitely seems to be ahead of OpenAI. It's kind of pulled ahead because of its focus on enterprise and because it's a little bit more reasonable when it comes to, for example, things like revenue generation and so forth. I think open weight models are going to supersede very quickly, as we said in the beginning of the discussion. I do think that a lot of the value that these large companies are bringing is on their model. I think that's going to shift to the harness. It's going to shift to the engineering that goes around the LLMs. And so whoever has the better harness is going to win that race, not whoever has the better large language model. In the longer run, though, I think it's anybody's to win. I don't know if these guys are the ones that are going to win it.
I unpack that, like, for the founders that are listening, what is the opportunity for the enterprise they can focus on?
Yeah, look, AI agents are the Lego blocks of the future of enterprise. If you realize that and you learn how to put them together and have those Lego blocks be autonomous, but have the mesh that puts them together follow a trustworthy sort of process, then you win, and that's in every single different domain. So it's not a single domain. How many people do you know that are doing that? Not too many. I mean, I've placed my bet on a services company because I think the services company owns the last mile. So, by virtue of being pushed to agentify every single client's, workflow and process and even organizational structure, we are in the front line. We'll have to do that. So that's my bet. But it's wide open. I think. I think we're really scratching the surface right now. Even with today's technology, we don't have to go invent anything new. It's really about utilizing what we have today.
You mentioned Cognizant, your company you're currently working. Part of your responsibility is running the Cognizant AI lab. What do you think is going to be the future of the AI lab frontier? Meaning that we see the future that there is decentralized agent working together and they are actually producing AI, let's say for AI, and we are going on that path, or now like the current model that we have for running the labs and producing the knowledge and the model is the kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's several tracks that are interesting, but the future is very hard to tell, especially in AI, and things are moving so quickly. Um, First of all, we have to acknowledge the fact that the state of the art in AI is still limited. We might be astounded by what large language models can do, but there's a lot that they can't do. So when it comes to AI research, there's still a lot to be, reinvented or invented and so forth. So I think we're going to have some job security. However, let me contradict myself. There is a new within AI. What's nice is that you have full control over what you're building, from writing the code to testing it, evaluating, and then improving the code. But you don't have that luxury, for example, in drug discovery and so forth. You have to go to the real world, but here you do. And that lends itself to recursive self-improvement. So you can actually have your AI system, that's your AI scientist doing the research, also at a meta level kind of improve its own research process and the way it does it. So we're starting to see, it's still early days, but we're starting to see some evidence that recursive self-improvement works in certain areas. And so maybe we don't have job security. Maybe the AI future is through there. There are other engineering principles and best practices that still need to be worked out when it comes to using AI agents. And that's just within putting AI agents together to create an AI application where all the agents are kind of aligned in harmony, trying to do something for the user. But very quickly, this is going to move, and is already moving, to AI agents from different businesses talking to each other, AI agents talking to AI agents representing humans. I think we have the elements of the worldwide agentic web. I'm hoping that it will be as liberal and open as the web itself was in its beginning, where everyone can actually create their own agentic systems and host them and have everyone use them and connect them to everybody else's agents. That is a vision. It won't necessarily come true, but it is also another area of research. So it's just to name a few areas where a research lab can excel. I guess areas that we're working on. I bet there's more.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that and thinking about knowledge work, and if you have agents talking to agents from different sectors, and simultaneously you have these large enterprises, and you guys have, your way around large enterprises and small startups, a lot of them do have bloat. A lot of them are looking at ways to reduce cost and potentially cut headcount. But it's just created a bigger conversation. What is the perspective that both of you have around the future of knowledge work, human in the loop, and agents beginning to actually work so well together that we don't need a human in the loop? And I know, Bob, like you have a bit of a Darwinian approach towards this, and back to the concept of your evolutionary thesis. I just want to kind of touch on that, and feel free, whoever wants to take this one first.
Okay.
I want to get philosophical.
Philosophical. I'm a big fan of less human in the loop. I see
Okay.
so many problems with human decisions, so much emotion and beliefs that are not like. I'm a big soccer fan, and I see everywhere whenever the ref had to make the call, it was a problem, and whenever the computer made the call, it was perfectly correct. And then they go back and look and say, oh, like this is a good player, and most refs are biased towards him. And like it's a proven thing. Like we cannot think as logically, although some of that maybe is also ingrained in LLMs because
We trained them.
we train them on human knowledge. But I think they in general do better as long as you come up with the right. You could come up with the right success metrics for a problem, and let them go experiment and see. They can experiment, try different things. They don't get frustrated. They don't get pulled off to this other thing or that other thing. Like, I think it's gonna do well. And I've been very excited about this, and some of the work I'm doing at Airbnb, kind of like on internal developer tools are around that. I see, since I started working on it like more than a year ago, and now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's getting better and better.
And if there is a future where we have no human in the loop, what do you believe human purpose and our agency, what do you kind of imagine that future to look like for everyone listening? And
I mean, you can go see all these YouTubes from Elon Musk and others. It's basically maybe at some point it's just 1%. I mean, if we cannot really eliminate humans and give it all to AI. I think probably not a good idea. Like, look at how many species we gone extinct because of us. We don't want to be one of them because of AI. But yeah, I mean, it could move towards very, very small startups, maybe one or two people on the top, just overseeing an AI doing all the business, all the work.
all right, Babak, I want to hear from you. What's your perspective here? Do you agree, disagree?
I don't disagree. I think there are many, many areas where AI does better than humans. And so there's a big disruption coming with a lot of current jobs being displaced because of that, for sure. Absolutely. It's only when it comes to our job that we start feeling really insecure, when it's like, I don't know, the horse and cart guy, we don't care. And we're like, yeah, that's old, whatever. The radiologist. But when it comes to our job, we have this something special that we do that AI would never be able to do. And that's, self-preserving is understandable. So I do think there's a big disruption coming. On the other hand, I mean, we talk about AI does have some fundamental limitations today. AI does not learn from lived experience. It does in a very, very cheaty way, and it doesn't. It really, you have to remind it everything all over again. And so some of those limitations are barriers to fully, using AI for everything. So that's one thing. The other is that we're not ready yet to give AI personhood. So Because we're not ready to do that, what that means is that someone has to be the fall guy. Even if it means just rubber stamping and being the responsible party that we penalize. So humans end up being the fall guy. So their role is still kind of preserved until society accepts personhood for AI. There's also another side of me, more optimistic side of me when it comes from a human perspective, which is every time we've had a technology come around that's been so generally useful and so democratizing that everyone can actually make use of it, it's not made us less busy. It's actually made us busier. And we've always been able to come up with new things that we want to do. And the economic system right now really values human involvement, not machine involvement as much, right? We're not paying our car, right? We're paying the driver of that car, for example, if it's an Uber. We're not really paying the car itself because the economic system just doesn't allow that. We are paying people that might be doing things that don't have an immediate benefit to anyone. But we just, like, as humanity, we feel that it's valuable in some way. And so the economic system rewards that. The monetary system rewards that. And so I think we will probably get busier. We will be in this era of building new things with this powerful tool and keeping busy and the world running. And maybe increasingly the world is running on AI, but that little bit that we run is, we make that and redistribute it and everybody is happy. Ultimately, though, I think there's nothing would make me more proud of humanity if humanity is able to engineer. It's
Survival.
it's the being that comes after, right? It's never happened in evolution, right? Evolution kind of evolves and you have new things kind of showing up. We will also go extinct and something else will come in place of us. It's inevitable. That's how it works. But what if we actually had a role in engineering whatever comes after us? That would be awesome. We're gonna die anyway, so
Yeah. There you go.
Since we are in the philosophical phase, let me ask the kind of last question. I think some people knows what we choose the second as a name, and basically the thesis is that you need to reinvent yourself. Go forward and looking forward what you really like. You wrote a book with the name of the Konar and the Apple, and basically is a kind of personal story. But the things that stay with me. Sometimes you mentioned that the name is come with Apple. Everyone knows what Apple is, but the Konar basically is a plant in Iran and southern Iran in Ahvaz where you do grow up, and people doesn't know. And basically that's the character of the me or maybe a Siamak as well. You guys made it, and you repeat doing that. If I build a technology that sit on the 2 billion people, I basically made it. There's any insightful framework that you guys using that chasing the things that matters to you? Because it's hard. I think Sentient was a very complex situation, but to come survival after, then Cognizant, before that, Siri and all that. What was your framework? What was your framework that can share with the audience that actually you can follow your dream and you can keep doing that for, 28 years and build this real value for the people? That's the right too.
Okay, yeah. So my thinking is very simple. Use whatever worked and improve whatever didn't work. And every time you get, and I think the nice thing about Silicon Valley in general, like every few years, everybody expects you to go and do something new. And then with that, you can reinvent yourself in many ways. You can bring your learnings, you understand what would make a team successful, what makes it not that successful, or would hinder it or cause problems. But I mean, also, like, you would always want to work on something you love. And that's my simple rules.
Same.
Don, come on.
Yeah, well, I mean,
What is your corner of your character that maybe people doesn't know?
uh, yeah, I mean, I like to figure things out, and I have fun doing it. And so the good news is me figuring things out has resulted in, you know, building stuff that's cool and of interest to others. My wife always says, just, don't live to achieve a goal, because that goal is, you achieve it and then it passes and you're happy for a little while and then it's done. Live your values. And that way, every night you go to bed, you're like, did I have fun? Was it cool? Did I help people? And you're happy more often. So I live by that. I think I've just been lucky that what I like to do has ended up being somewhat useful.
Ping there. That's the whole.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And for all of our listeners and our audience, I just want to say to Ardalan and Farzam, the second group and Secondpod, please follow what they're doing. Every single month, they're having new and interesting conversations with founders, someone that's on their second journey, reinvention. These are important themes that we've covered, and they go to the depths to unearth and find research and the archives that they were able to pull to have this conversation today. I mean, I think bringing up schizo mode and seeing your face has been one of my favorite points. And going through that is important for us to project what happens in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for all of you who might not be aware, Babak did write The Konar and the Apple Tree. However, he keeps busy. He has a new book coming out. I believe is it coming out in September?
Oh, thank you for remembering. Yes.
Yeah, I remember September. And it's called The Agentic Enterprise. I'm sure it'll be available. Where is it going to be available? Here's the pitch.
Yeah, it's an O'Reilly book. So if you search, you can pre-order right now. And hopefully it's going to be useful.
Amazing. The Agentic Enterprise. Come on.
Counting on. Funny how they only call you when the story's already wrote. Give it all again. Lost the room, but I kept the plan. Second time around. I don't need to see